This afternoon, we are on a mission. We're traveling all the way to Mount Wachusett, which is in the state of Massachusetts. Although sadly, those two words are not spelled the same. We've come to do one thing. The GPS challenge. Many of you may have recently gotten or are thinking about getting a wearable device with GPS built in. And you're asking yourself, can I use this thing for some of the activities that I do? And most users are going to be using this to do marathons or triathlons. You're going to be using it for more normal day activities, like hiking. Sometimes you just want to get outside in nature and take a leisurely stroll, where you'll encounter dangerous wildlife or falls that can kill you. But before we encounter our brushes with death, let's look at the contenders. The first contender is a Fitbit Charge 4. And what Fitbits are electronic pedometers. They tell you the number of steps you've taken in a day to motivate you to get out and move. This version of the Fitbit, they somehow managed to stuff a GPS receiver inside. This next contender is a Garmin 245. Now, Garmins are intended to be used by semi-serious athletes. You wear this while you run outside or bike, and at the end of the year, it'll collect all your data, and Strava will tell you how many times you've run or biked around the world. And finally, the star of the show, this next contender is the Apple Watch version 6. The Apple Watch is intended for people who like things Apple. It's a very versatile device, and it's meant to be used as a companion to your smartphone. You could actually take calls on it. It also has some fitness features that monitor your health, like heart rate and oxygen level. And back to Wachusett and our test. There'll be other comparison of GPS accuracy of devices online, and what their method is they'll take multiple devices and run a few laps in different terrains and do a very in-depth look at the traces to see which one looks the most accurate. But we've come up with something a bit more simple. Our method is to start all the GPS devices in the exact same spot, and then we'll go hiking in for some distance. At some point we'll stop, take a reading, and then we'll head back out, retracing the steps that we did coming in, back to the same spot that we started from and take the final reading. Because the distance going out is the same distance as the distance coming back, the most accurate device should be the one that is most consistent between the two readings. And with that, we headed off on our hike. And because we were in New England, we encountered trees. Lots of trees. And then we noticed our Fitbit, with aspirations of becoming a true GPS device, failed to get a GPS reception and returned to its day job as an electronic pedometer. But our other contenders soldiered on and made it to the halfway point. We took our first reading. From there, we headed back and survived the descent and made it back to our starting point, where we took our final reading. And after crunching through the data, we got our results. The winner of the test was the Garmin 245. It gave the same distance on the inward portion of the hike as the outward portion of the hike, giving a 0-foot error. And the clear loser of the test, besides the Fitbit that bowed out, was the Apple Watch V6. It gave the most inconsistent results with a error of 700 feet for the hike. Now, I should note that even though the Garmin won this comparison, we also recorded the hike using the Strava app on a phone. And if you look at the results in the bottom, it would have probably won this comparison on a better day. Given that the results were so close between the Garmin and the phone, I'll have to consult the judges. Should I give the win to the Garmin? And so we headed off on another comparison, this time in the Burlington Landmark Forest. We repeated our procedure where we started each device in the exact same starting location. And then we headed off into the forest, where we encountered dangerous, rusty old automobiles, and encountered many twists and turns which challenged our GPS receivers. At the halfway point, we took our reading, and then retraced our steps out of the forest. When we reached our starting location, we took our last reading. And after some number crunching, we got our results. And again, the Garmin comes out on top, besting all other devices in consistently measuring distance. And once again, the clear loser of the test is the Apple Watch version 6, measuring the least consistent distance. The results from the Apple Watch were a bit curious because when we look at the traces between the watch and the Garmin, we don't see any large differences, certainly nothing that would explain the 3,000 feet in error. After pondering this mystery for a considerable amount of time, we concluded that maybe measuring distance is harder than we thought. Once again, the Garmin comes out on top, but the results between it and the phone were pretty close. So I'll have to consult my judges again. Does the Garmin deserve this win? And so we went to Prospect Park in Waltham and redid the procedure, starting all the devices in the same starting location. Then took a leisurely stroll through the paved forest, taking our reading at the halfway point. Then we headed back, and once returning to the starting point, took our final reading. We crunched through the numbers and got our results. In a very tight race, the Garmin and the Strava app on the phone tie for the win. And our consistent loser, once again, being the Apple Watch. So, what do you think, Judge? Can I give the win to the Garmin this time? I'm detecting that the judging is not impartial in this competition. So what do we learn? Which GPS device is going to work for you when you go hiking? The Fitbit, the stylish pedometer that wants to expand its resume. The Garmin, the veteran athlete with years of GPS experience. The Apple Watch, wanting to prove that it's not just a pretty face. The Fitbit. I don't know how this will work where you live, but in New England, with all our trees, it's not going to work. The Apple Watch. It's definitely the prettiest device, but It's going to tell you something different every time you ask it. The Garmin. I can't say this device will give you the most accurate distance on your hike, but I can say it'll give you the most consistent distance on your hike. This gave us the most consistent distance on both legs of our hike, and it did it consistently for all our hikes. Thanks for watching our video. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have a different opinion, go take a hike.